Oops. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing today? Sorry about this late start. Once again, sorry about the late start. I know you guys have a lot of things going on. So the simple fact that you guys are here, I'm trying to get a little bit of more knowledge, especially when it comes to contracting, especially when it comes to getting the future set for you guys. I take that very serious, and I just want to appreciate you guys. Sorry about the delay. Today's going to be very exciting. So we're going to go over, once again, another one of my favorite topics, something that we see so many contractors struggling when they start their own contracting business, and that has to do with pricing. So many of us get stuck in the rat race right off the beginning, and guess what? We wish we understood what pricing was. We wish we understood everything that's all involved. But the reality is we get stuck when it comes to pricing. So that's what we're going to be going over today. And I'm just checking one more time if you guys can hear me all right. I'm trying to get the audio better. Once again, we're working from my camera, but we're going to try to get this audio hooked up. Alrighty. How's it looking, guys? How's it looking? How's it sounding? How's it look? And how does it sound, guys? Are you guys able to see the board, or is it too bright? Comment down below if you guys are able to see the board or if it's too bright. Need your feedback, guys. Let me know if it's too bright. I can tone it down. Let me check the comments. Are you guys able to see the board, or is it too bright? Let's test this out, guys. How does it look? How does it look? How does it look, everybody? I'm going to get my iPhone on just so I can see some of the messages. Alrighty, so I'm seeing bad reflection. How about now? The bright, turn off the lights too. Dan, you're trying to make this a slumber party or something? This is the first time it's acting like this, so I appreciate you guys being patient. Let's see, let's see. How's this looking now? How's this looking for you guys? How's that, guys? Are you guys able to see? How's that, everybody? Give it to me. Give it to me. I think it's probably as good as it will get. Alrighty. All right, I'll just read it out loud with you guys as well as have the graphic up. The point of this entire one is that we're going to be going over with this together in today's lesson. I'll be marking it up so you guys can follow along, okay? Perfect. So I'm recording audio on one. How's the sound on the microphone though for the camera? Are you guys able to see? We'll be able to zoom in, zoom out when we get to the main points, okay? So I'll be following up. How about Zoom meetings? All righty, let's go. Everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to today's Pricing 101. And what's so exciting about tonight's class is I'm genuinely going to be going over the blueprint. We're genuinely going to be giving you guys the formula you need to come up with your price. Why is that so important? Why do I need to understand some math? Once again, when it comes to skill trades, when it comes to contractors, construction, we weren't good at school, so we decided to work with our hands. But the issue that we're starting to see, especially when it comes to contractors, especially when it comes to individuals that we're working with in our BULD association, we're seeing a lot of people don't understand how much to charge. And once they figure out that formula, once they pivot, once they add all those numbers together, money starts coming in like crazy. And that is very good, but then it brings a whole new set of fears. Because before you were getting jobs like crazy, you were busy, you were making some money, but you were always broke, or you never had the opportunity to scale or had opportunities to buy anything. It was like you were always busy, but you didn't feel like you were making money. But now you're gonna have a nice competitive price. You're gonna start charging more. And then what we're gonna start seeing is people are gonna start saying no. And you're gonna get offended. You're gonna start freaking out saying, oh my God, am I doing something wrong? But the point of today is understanding that there's a sweet spot that you want to be in. You don't want all yeses, you don't want all nos. Once you start figuring out that weight, once you understand your own number, you're going to see your business grow, and you're going to start having those opportunities to grow as well. What is going on? So are you guys able to see everything nice and clear? Just want to hear from you guys one more time before we start going. I'm just going to check my settings. Does it cut off at any point, or does it stay on? Perfect. Were you guys able to hear that? Because sometimes the screen goes off, and I just want to make sure that you guys are still aware, still there. Perfect. So talk to me, guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys have a hard time when it comes to pricing? I want to hear from you guys. When it comes to pricing, do you guys understand your numbers, or do you guys need help with it? Talk to me, guys. How do you guys view yourself when it comes to pricing? Need help. Would love to compare. Need help. Help. Awesome. So that's the point of today, what we're going to be going over a little more into detail. So when it comes to pricing, when it comes to understanding your numbers, a lot of people want to understand where they're coming from. And we have a few of you guys who are doing awesome work, beautiful work, good reputation within the industry. And just having that number mess up or having some flaws in that number can mess up exactly where you want to be at the end of the year. So the simple fact that you guys are having these conversations is so important. The simple fact that we're having these conversations just proves what the industry wants. And that's what our number one focus is today. Understand that, hey, we may be in a position that we don't like, or we may be in a position where we recognize, hey, there's always room to get better, and this is where we take it up. If you guys just saw my Instagram post, we recently just posted like 30 minutes before today's live, a fraction of what we're going to be going over today. Today, we're going to go more into details with some figures, some numbers, so you guys can put. But if you guys are a part of the BULD Association, if you guys are just jumping in today, and you happen to know your overhead, you happen to know all your costs, we're going to run by an example of what your baseline minimum should be if you want to operate business. And a lot of that's going to be based off of the information that we have nationwide, the Department of Labor, the Department of Consumer Protection. A lot of these different agencies already say, hey, this is typically the going rate. This is typically this is typically that. And what we're going to be able to see today is when it really comes down to business, unless you don't know your numbers, everybody is still in the same ballpark room. And that's because we're going to understand our figures and just keep these figures in mind, these margins, all right, in mind. So basically, just keep this in mind. $30, $30, $30, $10. Which equals 100%, which is going to be your business. $30, $30, $30, $10. Keep those rough figures in your head. The reason why I brought these figures up is because this is exactly what we're going to break down in today's demonstration. 30, 30, 30, 10. 100%. Add all those up, you get 100% of what your minimum price should be. And that is where electrical contracting starts getting fun. Because once you know these numbers, these figures, these rough estimates, you start plugging them in. Now you can start tweaking numbers, and you're going to see, hey, I can remove one, and then guess what? This bottom line can change. I can remove this, I can add here, but guess what? You're always going to stay profitable. You have to understand these figures, where these numbers go, so that you can run these numbers efficiently. So I'm going to jump into some of the comments. So we have some guys, the print's a bit small. Okay, boom. Sounds good, loud and clear. Nah, Love to compare. Need help, need help. Perfect. Appreciate you guys. We have some great guys. We have Andrew. We got Rick About It. We have Pedro Electric. We have Figs. Good to see you, brother. Nickelodeon. Stelman. What else we have? We have some good guys in here. Ideal, Pool Services. We have everything. Very interesting topic to go over with each and every one of you guys. So let's get into it, guys, for today. Remember the numbers. If you're going to leave with today, if you're going to leave with anything from today, 30, 30, 30, 10. 30, 30, 30, 10. 3 30s, 1 10. Remember those figures. What are those going to be? Well, let's bring it up right now. So for today, in pricing 101, we're going to go over these magic numbers. 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 10 equals your business is your business price. Remember, guys, 30, 30, 30, 10. These are your business margins. When people talk about margins, what are margins? Margins is your percentages for each aspect of your business. There's areas where people talk about what's your P&L, what's your profit margins, what's your overhead margins. All of these are percentages. The 4 that are going to directly affect you as a contractor are listed right here. Can you guys see me, or is it way too dark now? Let me know what you guys think. Remember these numbers, 30, 30, 30, 10. 30, 30, 30, 10. Remember these guys, 30, 30, 30, 10. This is what you guys need to remember when it comes to your pricing and understanding your business structure. 30, 30, 30, 10. Alrighty, guys? 30, 30, 30, 10. Let's get into it. We're going to start breaking these things down. So, when it comes to your different types of margins, you're going to see your overhead. You're going to see your profit. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones that everyone talks about, right? Everybody says, oh, you don't know your overhead, or basically you don't understand how to run a business. Your overhead is one of those 30s. Profit margin. When everybody says don't lower your prices because you're running a business, or don't lower your prices or you go out of business, that's because you're basically saying you don't have any profit. So you got 30% in overhead. You got 30% in profit. If you're a business owner, either you're going to be paying yourself on the field to do that stuff, which is basically your hourly rate as an employee, not as a business owner, as an employee to get the job done. That comes out to basically 30 to 33%. Everybody knows once you have a crew, more than 30% to 50% is basically going straight to your workforce, payroll. So you got 30% when it comes to employees' costs, employees, their pay, their hourly rate. And then you got that lingering 10%. Then you got that lingering 10%. And that's going to be for employee costs, employee benefits, contingencies, things that happen, you know, the wazoo. So this last week, I spoke with a tax advisor. He runs the taxes
for these major companies nationwide. He works in the PBD mastermind, and he handles the majority of these billion-dollar revenue. Billion-dollar, I'm talking about with a B, billion-dollar, they're tax preparers. And they're basically saying, this is contracting, broken down into these 4 sections. Profit, overhead, employees, 10% contingency, benefit packages. A lot of people do 5 to 8% contingency, and then the other 5 or 2 to 5% can be used for benefits, you know, like health insurance. You start stashing that cash away. But basically, this formula is everything you're going to need when it comes to understanding the minimum you want to charge for a given hour or a price as a whole as a business. 30, 30, 30, 10. This is something you want to keep in mind, because once again, just like the NEC is the bare minimum code for electrician, this is the bare minimum. Once again, like we talked about in other videos, we talked about in other courses, if you guys are in anything of a specialty trade, right? You're doing something exclusive. You're doing something that people aren't tackling. These numbers are not going to reflect what the price you give to a customer, because that market dictates the value. This is your operating cost as a business. I was talking to Stelman today, and he was telling me, you know, with landscape lighting, Stelman, if you want to correct me at any point, write it down in the comments just so I don't butcher you. He was talking about the different markups, the different prices these landscape lighting go for. But I guarantee you, Stelman's paying his guys the same way I'm paying my guys. Just like Figs out in Massachusetts is probably paying his guys on the East Coast to the West Coast. Everybody's paying electricians roughly 20 to 40 bucks for the most part. We're all within $10 batting room of each other. So how does some guys make bigger money or bigger price tickets compared to others? It's because as a whole, business-wise, we have the same operating costs as a business. But the value that you're giving, the work that you're providing is completely different. For example, Stelman in New York City, right? Landscape lighting, he's saying out the wazoo. He's saying $600 for a service card when it comes to a Lutron system. But guess what? He's paying his guys 30, 30, 30, 10. The same formula is going to apply to him as a business cost. This is to help put that into perspective for you when it comes to contracting. When you're running a business, you got to make this. I remember in high school, when was it? Junior high school, when we were talking about common denominators and bring fractions all the way up down to its simplest form. Bring fractions down all the way to its baseline, common denominators, right? This is the common denominators, the common margins when it comes to contracting. 30, 30, 30, 10. For the most part, when you're charging, 30% of those costs are going into employee, their hourly rate, 30% into profit. Now you're going to say, so, well, my profit, my overhead comes out to 26%. Bro, we're talking about 4% rounded up. You understand? As a whole, this is what we're going for. A lot of people are bidding jobs for 30%, but at the end of the year, they're talking about 6 to 10% is the national average. So over here, there's a leak. Over here, there's a leak because they don't know what their overhead is. Over here, they're just paying their guys whatever, and then they're milking jobs with SOPs, without efficiency. So 30% now turns into 40, 50%. So in each one of these aspects, now you can filter it down and figure out where the bottleneck is or where you're losing the most money. Is it a profit issue? Is it an overhead issue? Or is it an employee cost issue? If it's employee cost, that goes to SOP's efficiency. Do they know what they're doing, or they're milking the day? Do you have enough profit coming in? And the price that you're charging, are you covering your expenses as a company? Do you see where I'm getting at? This is the formula for each and every one of you who are a contractor. If you're thinking about coming into business, break it down to the easiest numbers, 30, 30, 30, 10. After that, you can start playing with these numbers around. You can tweak it down. You can say 26% is my overhead, So I got 4, I can bump my price, my profit margin up 4%. Or you can say, I want to keep that 4% and put it down here to my employee cost for benefit packages. You see where I'm getting? Once you understand these structures, you can start moving percentages, 1 or 2%, maybe 5% from here, move it over to profit. Or if you're in profit, you're making too much money, and you're like, hey, I'm good with this much. Let me put 10% into my employee package. Or let's say my employee cost. Let's say I want to give my guys a raise. So take 5% from 30, make it to 25, right? And you give 5% and give everybody a raise. Do you understand this? When you break it down to these 4 quadrants based off of business, you understand your operating cost. Now, this can go apply to a service call. And when you get paid $100, you're going to put $30 here, you're going to put $30 there, you're going to put $30 here, you're going to put $10 here. Perfect. Or you could be Spellman who go $600 an hour. So you can go, easy. 175 here, 175 there, 175 there, and blah, 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 blah. You understand how you can start breaking this thing down now? This doesn't apply to people doing specialty trades. This formula applies to everybody who is doing business. This is the cost of business. This is the cost of operating your contracting business. Does this make sense? I'm going to check the comments out. Any questions, comments, concerns? This is time to ask it. But I'm going to leave this right here for you guys to check it out. Does this make sense, guys? 30, 30, 30, 10. I'm going to check the comments out. Sounds great, good sound. Needs a mo, would love to compare. Fucking milking it. Wheels a lefty? Yeah, I'm a lefty. Can see the board fine. Milking it. Sorry if I'm jumping ahead. Are you including cogs and overhead? So overhead is completely different from profit. If you're gonna mark up material, throw that under profit because you're marking it up, that's free. Unless you're doing warranties and stuff like that, throw that little percentage over there too. But this is basically everything. When it comes to material, you're marking up. A lot of guys say markup. Markup covers everything. So markup is gonna encompass some overhead, some profit, some inflate your guys' rate. So markup as a whole, all of this is markup. So you would divvy up the markup across wherever it's fitted. You understand? Perfect. We got Almond here like that. Lighthouse, perfect. Nickelodeon, you're doing something similar. Perfect. So now, this is all of this all together. So all of this is your markup. So markup, how you break that down into your overhead profits, it's however you see fit. Now what we're going to be doing is talking about this stuff, each one. So that's a good question that you asked. Now we're going to start breaking down together what are these different aspects of your markup. So what's the difference between markup and the profit? Markup is the percentage increases over the costs. What are your costs? Your overhead costs, your employee costs, your benefits costs, or your contingency costs. All of this stuff now is going to fall under your markup. Profit is the percentage of revenue left over after all this stuff. So after you add these 3 up, this guy, after you add up 30, 10, and another 30, you add that up and you got your 70%. 70% is majority of your costs. And then you have some of your business stuff that can be considered as overhead. So you're at 70 to 80% is going to be your costs, right? 70. I'm trying to do it with my right hand. And then when you deduct all that, that's going to leave you your profit margin. So basically, when we're going over this, markup is over the increase percentage over the costs. Now, let's say you want to understand your profits is left after all costs. So Lighthouse, does this make sense now? The difference. So guys, keep that in mind. Now let's go over to the next part. Overhead. What is overhead? For a lot of people, people just guess what overhead is. Oh, we got a thunderstorm going on. So if we lose power, just so you guys know. So a lot of people don't understand what their overhead costs. And there's guys out there. To this day, there's guys out there who broke down overhead. I think Figs did a video, Peter Galligan did a video, Stelman did some video where we talked about overhead. What are some examples of your overhead? Utilities, admin, insurance, marketing, CRMs, all these different things to keep your business lights on. A lot of you guys don't understand that. You just think it's like, oh, $500 here, $200 there, $100 here, gas fill up the tank, and you just be winging this stuff. Get a CPA, get a tax person, understand what your cost is. Understand that overhead. That percentage is going to be roughly around 20 to 30%. Now, here's the part where it gets fun. If you are coming into business, if you're just green, you just started your contracting business, your overhead is going to be way less because you have less equipment. You just started, okay? A guy who has 30 trucks and all these different equipment, trust me, he has more overhead than you. So when you start calculating your price, right? And you're charging 30% here, 30% there, 30, or copying their numbers, how many people I've seen saying, I charge what the big guys charge, and that's the stupidest idea. Hey, if it works, awesome. But guess what? You get that money and you don't break it down appropriately or you don't move it appropriately. Where are they now? They don't last. Because once again, you're charging, and guess what? You can charge up wazoo, and if someone buys it, awesome, you win. But on a consistent basis, it never works out. Because when you have a fresh guy and a new guy, a guy who's been planted, I'm always going to go with the new guy because they've been around and they've been rooted. The chance of them closing down business is close to none because they already been around 10, 50, 20 years. So the way you compete with a new business, and I'm not saying lower your price where you don't make money. No, play with these percentages around and you will see where it comes up from. So understand your overhead. When you're starting, you are automatically going to have less overhead than your competitors. Use that to your advantage. Because if your overhead is less, let's say it's 15%. That's 15% off. You're giving off the same profit. Let's say your business is making 30% profit. This guy's making 30%. As a percentage, you're making the same amount of profit margin as the big guy, but your overhead is less, so your price can be different, and you can use that as leverage. That's not lowering where you're going to go out of business. No, because you're still covering your costs. You have to understand how to break these numbers into each segment. Does this make sense for you guys? I understand the difference. Still curious where you're placing actual material costs. Gotcha. Is it worth trying to figure out how competitive bid was so low? Should I worry so much about being underbid? I wouldn't. Put all the energy that you need for your business into your business. Stop worrying about the competitors, because your competitors don't know their prices. Their competitors are just going to be following whatever you're going to be charging. Just pay and give the value. Everything else will follow. So let's go over some of these things, because gross profit margin and the net profit. The percentage of revenue left after deducting direct costs. The revenue left after deducting direct costs. So costs falls under everything. Cost falls under the materials, the goods of service, the labor, all of this is going to help. And Lighthouse, we'll get to that point. Nah, don't spend time trying to figure out what. Oh yeah. So gross. Net is what's taken after with the overhead. So gross profit, deducting direct costs. The material, the labor, that all goes under the employee cost. When it comes to net profiting margins, after you have your direct costs covered, right? And then your overhead, that's what you as the owner of the company or the company itself is profiting. So one is before overhead, one is before overhead, one is after overhead. So gross before overhead, net after. Just like your gross pay before taxes and after taxes. Same concept. Because everyone wants to talk about, oh, I made $1 million. I made $1 million revenue. And guess what? Revenue, that is in itself impressive. Cool, you sold $1 million. But let's say your costs and your overhead, or if you're a sales guy and you're 1099 all these salespeople and your profit margin is only 10%. You only brought in home 100,000. Is that really something you want to flex about depending on what you do? Or is the better flex saying, hey, I made $1 million with 52% take home, P&L. That's impressive, rather than I made $1 million and I took home 5. You see where I'm getting at? And once again, we go back to that illustration where it's saying, when people don't understand their numbers, when people are just bidding what the other guys are bidding, these guys are following their competitors rather than understanding their numbers. They don't know where these values go. And they're just spending money or using it or buying things that they don't need. And then boom, it brings down their profit margin. If you understand where your numbers go and the goal that you have for that year, and you place it in bet and you say, hey, for every $100, I'm going to do this, 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 this. All righty? Keep that in mind, guys. Then, when we talked about that contingency, when we talked about that employee benefits, things, of that nature, usually comes over to here. And this is that 5 to 10% that we talked about. The financial buffer, unexpected stuff. We know that falls a little under the overhead, especially when you're having that rainy day fund. But this, all in all, is going to be that emergency buffer. So you can have your savings, you have your profit, and then you have your buffer. Boom. Then you can also understand what your break-even point. I know a lot of people don't understand what their bottom line is. Why is understanding break-even so important? This is so important because there's so many different phrases out there that we hear in contracting. When it comes to contracting, there's a lot of people. That was loud. When it comes to contracting, there's a lot of stigmas. When it comes to contracting, there's a lot of things people say that they just make you think that you just have to follow suit. One of them being, don't lower your prices because you'll go out of business. That is a lie. You have to understand, once again, all these different things all play into each other. If I have 30% profit margins and I lower it to 20% profit margins, am I going out of business? No. I gave a 10% discount, and guess what? I take that out of my pocket. If you have 30% overhead and you want to give a 10% discount, where do you think that 10% comes from? Does it come from your employees and the costs, business costs? We understand, no. Does that come from your overhead? No. We understand that comes from your profit margins. So if you're making 30% profit and you give somebody 10% off, That comes from here, your profit. You don't sacrifice the business or you don't sacrifice your employees to give someone a break. So can you lower your price? Yes. Will you go out of business? No, unless you find out what your break-even point is. So let's say I need $100. If I make $100, if I get $100, I can cover all my expense. I can pay my guys, I can pay for the lights, I can pay for this, I can pay for that. At the end of the day, this covers everything. You're making no profit though. You're working for free as the business owner. Money comes in, money goes out. If you make $101, you're now making 1% profit margin. So let's say I price a job at $105. My overhead, my break-even point is 100. I make $5 every time I make a job. And guess what? 5 turns to 10, and then the more jobs you take on, the more profit margins you have. If I want to give $5 off, I have to understand I'm just not making money as an owner. You don't take that $5, you don't keep 5%, your $5, and then sacrifice the utility bills. Does that make sense? I want to hear from you guys. Blue is a little hard to see. So, when it comes to that phrase in contracting, don't lower your price or you'll go out of business. That's a lie, because you're now breaking down or you don't understand your break-even point. Now, let's say don't lower your price or you'll go out of business. That means you're already charging too low. Remember when I said, when you start looking at your numbers, you want to figure out the leak. If you lower your price and you go out of business, that means your profit margin is completely up. That means you got to go up 10, 15, 20, 30%. Does that make sense for you? That old phrase, everybody in contracting warns people. How many of us, I want to know, how many of us have heard another contractor tell them, don't lower your cost, don't lower your price, or you'll go out of business? The reason why they say that is because they're not charging enough. Once again, when you break down where your margins are, overhead, profit, and you understand you have a 30% profit margins, and someone says don't lower their don't lower your price because you go out of business, that means they don't have a buffer. That means they're operating, their day-to-day is operating at that break-even point. So when a contractor tells you don't lower your profit margins, don't lower your prices because you're going to go out of business, that's a complete lie. If a contractor tells you, hey, you can't lower your prices or you'll go out of business, that's because they're operating at their break-even point. If you truly understand your business, you're going to understand overhead, profit. Each one of these values hold a specific margin, and then you can play with that margin. Now, should you lower your price for everybody? Absolutely not. Always try to bump it up. But if someone says, if you lower your price, you're not going to be able to do business, that's a lie. I cover my costs with 30% alone. I cover my guys with this next 30%. I cover my business profit and paying myself basically with another 30. Once you put it into this perspective, you know exactly what you can tweak. Remember, you can take 1 to 2, 5%, push it over here, move it. That's when business becomes fun. That's when you want to work on a contract. Like what I did over here with the solar. I worked on a long-term contract. And I said, hey, a lot of my overhead goes into paying to leads for new work. And that's roughly 8%. So what I did, I lowered my overhead by 8% for this project because they were going to give me a 5-year contract. Now with that 8%, I kept my 30% profit margins. So that 8% went over to here. So now I'm at 38. And now I end the year at 42% profit margin. Because you're playing with these figures all the time. Inflation goes up, take it from somewhere else, bro. Don't take it from overhead, don't take it from your profit. If you can take it from over there, that rainy day buffer that we talked about, go there. Once you understand these numbers and you move things around, bro, how many of us heard that Kevin Hart stand-up sketch? When he said, when he was at the bar, and he goes how he don't date, he don't hang out with basketball players anymore. He goes because they don't have respect for the money. And then they're like, he buys a bottle, I buy a bottle, blah, 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 back and forth, and then the bill comes up. And he's like, yo, bro, let's go 50-50 on this. And he's like, all my money's in my savings account. I got to transfer it to my checkings account. It's going to take 3 business days. Remember that, Joe? That hit all of us because we were all there at one point. We're like, crap. I'm broke right now in checking. I got 10K sitting in savings, but I don't want to touch it. You know what I mean? You got to move money around. We've all been there. That's why the joke hit with us. The same with your business. You got money in different areas. You got to move this stuff around, pull it from here, pull it. And remember, this is not just a one-time. This happens every job you have. You're playing with these figures. Hey, did I do this? Boom, boom. You got to move this stuff around. And when you do that moving around, you understand the game of business. You understand the game of financial literacy. You can start having fun with business. That's when you can compete with other guys. And you can say, hey, this guy's bidding roughly 30, 30, 30, 10. Remember, that's the standard what everyone's doing. That's how they're dividing their numbers up. So if you know that guy's going for 30 and you lower your price to 20% profit margin, I'm taking a hit. I'm losing 10%, but I'm still making 20%. You can still live good if it's a big enough job off 20%. You see where I'm getting at? And guess what? You're still in business. The people who say, don't lower your prices, are the people who are operating at their break-even point on a normal Tuesday. On day-to-day, they're stuck here. They don't have room to go lower. That's sad. They need to bump up their price. And guess what? A lot of them are going to say, I can't bump it up. The market I'm in, there's too many competition. If I bump up my prices, no one's going to hire me. That's your choice. That's your choice for living there and doing business in that area. Why don't you pivot, offer a new service? Why don't you pivot and go to another area? Why don't you travel a little farther where you can raise your prices so you can get the money that you deserve as a contractor? This is what it's all about, these conversations. It's simple. Put it into perspective. Put it onto a paper. Do the freaking math. Start playing with the numbers and figure out what's best for you. And guess what? If you want to operate forever, 30 years in business, want to operate at break-even point, more power to you. Good for you. If you, on the other hand, say, no, dude, I want to make some cash. I'm okay with driving an extra hour. I'm okay with doing this type of work. I'm okay with doing that stuff. Like we talked with Stelman today, what we talked about with landscape lighting, bro. I'm like, bro, landscape lighting is straight hard work. And then he goes, guess what? The cost is going to be the same. You and me are both going to have a guy digging a trench or doing some yard work, and it's going to cost us a day of just digging. But where you make the money is on the equipment you use. Instead of using those Home Depot solar lights out there, there's people using these Disney type fixtures. You understand? Did I break through? Did I lose you guys? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. You guys still there? Hello, hello, hello.